We're going to hear 1-minute poster pitches from the posters that'll be outside, and then we'll hear as well a little bit from 2 of the sponsored projects that came out of these activities from last year.
So I apologize. There's some plots outside that you can see more clearly. But my name is Michael Arnold. I work with Professor John Hart and Dr. Chintan Vaishnav.
You're going to need to speak into the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
And have received some wonderful help from Professor Rohit Karnik. So we are developing a point-of-use soil nutrient analysis system and recommendation engine. So we're working on some planar solid contact ion selective electrodes measuring nitrate, phosphate, potassium, and pH, and taking that information and inputting it into a recommendation engine to provide farmers with tailored nutrient recommendations or input recommendations for their specific crops which they're trying to plant. Good? Okay. Thanks.
So my name is Anton Krackel, and I'm a PhD candidate in Professor Michael Strano's lab, and I'm working on thermal energy harvesting, specifically for powering wireless sensor networks. So wireless sensor network, it's a group of spatially distributed sensors. They collect and record information in a particular environment. And one major characteristic of wireless sensor networks is they're often in remote locations with harsh environmental conditions. So a major challenge here is supplying reliable power. So what I've worked on is specifically taking ambient thermal fluctuations, such as the ubiquitous diurnal day and night temperature fluctuation cycle, converting that to electricity for the powering of wireless sensor networks. And they're quite advantageous because the temperature fluctuations are highly ubiquitous. They exist in a variety of different environments, above ground, below ground, a variety of weather conditions. So it can make it advantageous in harsh weather conditions over, say, solar, or especially when there's no solar fluence. So that's sort of what I work on, and I have a demo out here and a poster, and I'm happy to talk about more of the science, some of the equations here and the material science and device optimization. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Eva Stasi. I work with Professor Denke at the chemistry department. In our group, we design and synthesize metal organic conductive materials based on simple self-assembly of small inorganic and organic building units. This research draws on the idea that molecules are attracted inside the pores of these materials. As you can see from this chemical representation, what makes these materials truly unique is that they contain these large holes as part of the unit cells. When these materials stack in 3D, because they are 2-dimensional layers, these holes actually stack in the form of channels, and these channels can absorb molecules. So because the materials are essentially organic conductors, they can the conductivity of these materials can be modulated by electron transfer interactions with gases in the pores. And we use this as a principle to make chemiresistor devices out of these materials. So if you would like to see how we use them to detect carbon dioxide in atmospheric conditions, please come have a look at our poster. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Fink, and I work with Brian Anthony. And I'm working on non-contact and quantitative ultrasound imaging techniques. If you look at the top row, that's how a conventional ultrasound image is taken, by touching a probe to a person, and you get an image of some sort of geometry of the body inside. We're working on techniques using laser ultrasound, where we can take an ultrasound image without touching the patient or treating the patient's skin in any way. And then on the last row, we're also developing techniques that allow to sense and determine the material property distribution of tissue with ultrasound. If you want to hear more about that, please come see me during the poster session.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily Han Hauser. I'm a PhD candidate in mechanical engineering, and I work with Professor Rohit Karnik, who gave a talk on this project earlier today. But what we're trying to do is basically create a paradigm for more distributed monitoring of heavy metals and trace contaminants in water. Currently, what we have is that because of the high throughput instrumentation necessary to test for these sort of contaminants that's located at central labs, you have to transport large volume samples over long distances, and what this effectively does is create a barrier to any sort of this monitoring happening. So inspired by dried blood spotting, which solves similar problems in rural healthcare monitoring, what we do is we create low-cost and reliable devices that can dryly preserve contaminants in water samples so that they can be easily transported to the centralized lab for measurement. And so we have developed a device for heavy metal cations, which will be detailed on my poster outside. And we're hoping that this paradigm will enable more distributed water quality monitoring of trace contaminants in the future. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rafael Jaramillo, and I'm here to present a variant of resistive chemical sensing, a technique which we call photoconductive chemical sensing. We adopt a proven low-cost solution to chemical sensing, that is chem-resistor, resistive sensing. We adopt the phenomenon of photoconductivity in semiconductors as a robust, large signal, new approach to chemical sensing that brings in a whole new suite of materials. We combine this with bio-inspired adhesion techniques to make robust semiconducting composite materials, and we adopt well-proven small molecule approaches to functionalization. Our initial target are agricultural chemicals that are difficult to sense electrochemically for the reason that we don't require charge transfer. It's a fundamentally new mechanism for chemical sensing. The team is myself. I'm a semiconductor guy, I suppose, though I'm made of carbon like everyone else. My colleague, Professor Holton Anderson, is an expert in bio-inspired adhesion and structural materials. And my colleague, Professor Julia Ortoni, who's an expert in small molecule chemical functionalization. So if you're interested in these things, please come talk to me outside.
Hi, I'm Sun, a postdoc from Professor Spanner's group. We have developed several different kinds of plant sensors for plant study and plant engineering. So here are 4 different nanosensors we developed recently in our laboratory. The first one on top left is nitric oxide and hydrogen peroxide sensor. We embedded a carbon nanotube sensor to plant leaves and to detect these molecules in plant system. On top right is monitoring sensing plant to monitor soil water contaminants. We also can transfer this information to user device by IR communications. The bottom left is a drought monitoring sensor. By monitoring stomata conductance, the closing and opening, we could monitor the environmental conditions like humidity. The last one on bottom right is ATP sensor. We introduce nanoparticles to plant to convert ATP to visible light, so we can actually see ATP, plant ATP in visible wavelengths. We have a demo and poster, so please come by to know more detail. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jérôme Michon. I work in Professor Jejun Hu's lab in material science, and this work relates to on-chip spectroscopy. So spectrometers are a key component in many sensing applications, such as optical network performance monitoring and chemical and biological spectroscopic sensing. However, conventional benchtop instruments are bulky, fragile, and expensive, which has sparked interest in chip-integrated spectrometers that present significant advantages in terms of size, weight, power, robustness, and cost. And so in this work, we have proposed and demonstrated a novel on-chip spectrometer architecture that resolves the performance and scalability challenges. It relies on optical switches to efficiently modulate the optical path length different. In addition, we also developed a new machine learning method for spectrum reconstruction, which we showed to work well for both broad and narrow spectral features, unlike previous techniques. And I will be happy to tell you more about this by the poster. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm MK, a graduate student in Professor Strano's lab. So I'm presenting on behalf of Michael Lee. For decades, biologging communities has been like tagging marine organisms with sensors to study their animals' movement. But chemical sensing has not been widely utilized in biologging. So our project includes tagging marine organisms with, I don't think this is, oh yeah, marine organisms with biological hydrogels, which report via fluorescence. So, so our conformal concept is that we are developing a new sensor which selectively targets to the specific molecules by fluorescence. So we have designed this specific conformal concept, and we are trying to embed this hydrogel into the marine organism. So we implanted a number of hydrogels in goldfish in our lab, and we already demonstrated that there's no adverse impact on living fish, even though we implant the hydrogel. And also we found that we can visualize the fluorescence in the fish, in the living fish. And also we found that we can see the stepwise fluorescence decrease of this specific target molecules inside the fish simultaneously as time goes by. So I think the poster, we have another concept of COFMOR in this poster section. So if you're interested, you can come by to poster section. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adam Reith. I work with Ash Wright, a postdoc, and Professor Mir Shadinka in the Department of Chemistry. A huge problem is the growth and demand of air conditioning. So the United States uses an enormous amount of energy just on climate control. And as the developing world standards of living rise to meet our own, this problem is only growing. In addition, the refrigerants that we're using here are very pernicious greenhouse gases. So what we're doing about this is we're developing these materials called metal organic frameworks that are nano sponges. We can control the pore size of these materials and the hydrophilicity to absorb water at a range of different relative humidities. And by sucking up water, we take away heat from the surroundings. So these materials can be regenerated using low-grade waste heat, which we can use to create a cooling cycle that doesn't use any electricity.
Hi, I'm Megan Roberts, and I work with Brian Anthony and Vladimir Bilovich and another grad student named Apoorva Maraka. We have built ultrasound transducers that are capacitive out of flexible materials, and the goal of this project is to move ultrasound sensing into an ultra-portable and wearable form factor through advances in materials and fabrication.
Hi, I'm Vera Schröder. I'm a PhD student in the chemistry department, and I work in the group of Professor Timothy Swager. Today I'll be talking about our efforts in carbon nanotube-based chemical sensors, and I'll be covering our development of methodologies for the covalent functionalization of carbon nanotubes and immobilization of carbon nanotubes, and then the application of these materials in chemical sensors, where we are working towards applications in environmental monitoring and workplace safety monitoring, and also efforts towards breath analysis. So if you want to learn more about any of these topics, please come find me at my poster later on.
Hello everyone, my name is Robin Singh, and I'm a graduate student with Dr. Brian Anthony and Dr. Anu Agrawal. And my work is on biophotonic integrated circuit. We call them biopics for point-of-care diagnostics. We all know about photonic integrated circuits that are used in communication industries for improved bandwidth and for precise signal processing tools. But here, we are using these similar photonic integrated circuit to develop point-of-care real-time sensing technologies. So we have three different focuses. The first focus is on developing an on-chip photonic blood coagulometry. So this on-chip photonic platform allows you to have real-time coagulation analysis of your clotting blood, and you can guide your medicine based on that. The second focus is on developing an on-chip photonic aerosol spectrometer. So this on-chip spectrometer can characterize the aerosol particle size, count, and chemical all on a chip. it varies from ultra-fine small size of about 10 nanometers and can sense even micron-sized particles to about 1 micron. And the third focus is on having an antiphotonic fluoroscopy platform that has potential to miniaturize the existing fluorescence microscopy. If you're interested to know more about our work, please feel free to stop by at my poster. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brendan Smith, and I work with Professor Jeffrey Grossman in the Materials Science Engineering Department. Many of you may be aware that about a quarter of the world's population actually obtains their drinking water from a source which is contaminated. At the same time, a lot of you might also be aware that there are numerous available technologies and solutions today that can actually treat water just like this. There's a fundamental disconnect in that these solutions are quite typically far too costly, require far too often maintenance, or far too high requirements for maintenance, and are typically not really well suited for these specific challenges. And so we're trying to bridge this gap by introducing a porous silicon membrane, which you can see on the top right side here, which is capable of removing bacteria, viruses, and even heavy metals from household water supplies in the rural developing world. We're trying to do this in a way which is scalable, cost-effective, and also highly well suited for removing these types of contaminants. So if you'd like to come and learn more, come see me at my poster after the session. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Subra and I'm a graduate student at CSAIL. So as we enter an era of mass customization, many additive manufacturing techniques are becoming relevant. So this is an example of a hearing aid which has 3D printed parts. But we still rely on manual assembly of all the functional components like the electronics, speakers, microphones, and so on. So what we are interested in is to kind of create these composites that integrate multiple functions together within a single manufacturing process, and we call these autonomous composites. So at my poster today, I'll tell you a few details about our printer and how we can print single elements like actuators and communication devices, also basic integrations of these as autonomous composites, and how we can get them to spontaneously fold. And I'll end with a few details on topology optimization and the role for this in the creation of autonomous composites. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Lucas Seininger, and I'm part of a research team within the Swagger lab where we're trying to develop new chemical and biological sensors for the liquid phase. So now if you were to design a new sensor for the liquid phase, you would need a material that can change its physical properties in response to a chemical or biological analyte within a liquid environment. We have such a material, which are these dynamic liquid colloids, emulsion droplets that consist of more than one phase, and we can trigger these materials. So we can trigger a morphology change in response to all kinds of molecules, ions, a magnetic field, light, and also in response to certain chemical motifs that are present in larger biological structures such as pathogenic cells. So please come over and let our team convince you how simply and fast we can detect or tell you how if your chicken burrito was good to eat or if your coffee was actually a decaf. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kyung-Young Choi from Jong-Yoon Han's group in MIT. The topic I'd like to talk about today is about sample preparation technology, which can separate particles of different sizes in multiple biological samples based on their size in a label-free manner. So here in our lab, we have a device called spiral microfluidics, which can separate particles based on their sizes. So how the thing works is that the different particles of sizes experience different magnitudes of forces, microfluidic forces inside the channel. So by utilizing this, we were able to separate virus particles from the blood sample. And as you can see here in these plots, actually we enhanced the readouts from the sequencing data. So Feel free to come by to my poster, and I would love to answer your questions for those who are interested. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So we have two more speakers. So just let me.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's my pleasure to talk to you today about. So now I'm going to switch gears and talk about something completely different. Our seed proposal, our proposal for the MIT campus is called Sensor Hub. It's a dynamic wireless energy autonomous sensor network for the MIT campus and the world. And so what we're proposing for the MIT campus is not a sensor at all, but it's infrastructure for sensors. All the sensors that my colleagues are inventing and have now and in the future. So what we envision is a wireless. Let me just make sure I can do this here. So what we envision is to set up energy autonomous nodes that have universal connectors that you could plug any number of sensors into that can then record information and beam both energy and information to different nodes as part of this network. And this will be an experimental network that can help to benchmark many aspects of sensor technology, from algorithms to handle information flow to benchmarking sensors, many of which you just saw in the poster presentations. These types of autonomous sensor networks, we think, would find use in disaster areas and in remote locations that are removed from the energy grid. So imagine that there's a natural disaster that strikes a city like Boston. You could set up energy autonomous nodes that can wirelessly connect energy and information with each other, and you could sense the environment and also have a communications grid independent of whatever of the status of the energy grid. And so in order to do that, we envision these nodes would always be able to access power. So let's take a look at these nodes. Let's see here. Yeah, so these nodes, which we are reducing to practice, are sensor nodes that are capable of radiating and receiving RF energy, so they can beam energy to each other using wireless RF energy harvesting. They can also access intermittent solar, but they can also access a persistent form of energy harvesting that we've invented in my lab at MIT called a thermal resonator. And these devices can harvest energy from temperature fluctuations, which independently of whether it's night or day or whether you have access to solar, they can always access this temperature. And I'm going to actually, we've reduced this to practice. Here's one of these energy nodes, and I want to talk about this thermal resonator concept as the backbone of these energy nodes. And my group is spinning off a company called Ectotherm. I'm going to pass the mic to my student Anton Krackel, who's going to talk about Ectotherm and what it seeks to do in developing these nodes. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So I gave you a brief introduction with my 1-minute poster, but I want to go a little bit further in depth here. So we're Ectotherm, a clean energy that exists everywhere. We're initially targeting the powering of wireless sensor networks with applications ranging from environmental to security, safety, structural health, process monitoring, and for a variety of different purposes. It's an exploding market owing to its many advantages, its flexibility, its modularity, its lack of infrastructural requirements, and most importantly for our technology, its suitability for remote locations. The market is expected to reach 1 billion unit shipments this year and triple by 2022. However, in these remote locations, which often have harsh environmental conditions, a sustainable power source is lacking for these wireless sensor networks. There are two current solutions, one being a battery. Batteries lack in terms of persistence. They become depleted, they need to be replaced, recharged. This may be infeasible, this may be impractical, this may be impossible. It's generally accepted that the usefulness of these wireless sensor networks expires when the battery runs out. The other option is energy harvesting. Take, for example, your prototypical solar cell. These extend lifetimes by virtue of being energy harvesters, but current harvesters are conspicuous and they lack durability. So 2 quotes we have from our primary market research are, deployment of sensor networks makes them highly vulnerable to capture and vandalism. This highlights the need for a power source that's inconspicuous. Solar cells get scratched, get sand, get snow on top, they are not reliable. You need a durable power source in these remote environments with harsh environmental conditions. So what we've developed at Ectotherm is a patent-pending technology that takes temperature fluctuations, such as the diurnal cycle, the ubiquitous day and night diurnal cycle, converts it to electricity to power these wireless sensor networks. It's completely renewable. It's universal in the sense that diurnal cycle is completely ubiquitous. It exists in a variety of different environments, different weather conditions, above ground, below ground, and the device is highly durable. It solves the market's pain points. It's inconspicuous. As I hinted at, it can be placed underground. It can also be integrated into different structures in a camouflage or stealthy manner. It's persistent. It sustainably generates energy 24/7 all year long in a variety of different weather conditions, fog, cloud, sandstorm, snowstorm, etc. And it also lacks moving parts, making it highly durable. So our competitors are in 2 camps. In the top left, we have batteries. They're great in terms of their flexibility. You could integrate them into structures, put them underground, above ground, but they lack in persistency. They become depleted. Solar cells, on the other hand, they're persistent, but they require direct exposure to radiation from the sun, and that makes them conspicuous. Our technology, by virtue of being energy harvesting, is highly persistent, and by its ability to be incorporated into different structures in a stealthy manner or placed underground, it can be unnoticeable. So there are 2 main decisions that we looked at to optimize our use case for powering these wireless sensor networks. First is location. So what I have here on the left is taking a look at a comparison between thermal resonator technology and lithium-ion batteries. And the metric for this comparison is unit cost. So the cost per energy generated or energy stored. And it's in a variety of different locations, as indicated by the y-axis basically being the amplitude for temperature fluctuations, the x-axis essentially being different environmental temperatures. And so I have 2 data points here, Saudi Arabia and Boston. These are 2 locations where I've reduced to practice the device. And then this blue line here is a break-even line. So what you can conclude from this is we're more competitive in hot and highly fluctuating environments. And these trends are due to 2 aspects. So our power scales with the magnitude of temperature fluctuations. So we're comparing with lithium-ion batteries, and their self-discharge rate rapidly increases as temperature increases. And then basically taking this analysis and then looking at lifetime, we find that our device is more competitive than lithium-ion batteries in applications more than 14 years. So taking all of these aspects into consideration, we selected oil and gas pipelines as an ideal subsegment of the wireless sensor network market. So why is this? So there are 2.4 million miles of energy pipes in the world, 50-year lifetime, so that highlights basically our advantage over batteries. Mostly in remote locations with high temperatures, think deserts, so that again highlights our advantage over batteries. And then what's the driving factor for incorporating wireless sensor networks along these pipelines? Well, there are 3 reasons. So theft, so there's monetary implications. Leaks, it has monetary and policy regulations implications. And then often targeted by terrorists, so that's going to be monetary and safety. So the theft and the targeted by terrorists means you want an inconspicuous power solution. So that basically highlights our advantage over solar. And it's been estimated that there's a $3.5 billion global market for the sensing of theft and leakage along these pipelines. Just to quickly say where we think we are in the value chain. So we see ourselves as B2B, a power source supplied to wireless sensor network manufacturers such as Honeywell, with the final client being, say, an oil and gas conglomerate. So with that, I'll finish, and I'm sorry if I went a little over time. So thank you.